Over the next 5 to 6 years were probably the worst 5 to 6 years of my life. As we were growing and 10 foot tall and profitable, and our business model was fantastic. Mum retired. We got out to about 60 stores. I moved up here to Brisbane. I had millions of dollars in debt, and the pizza wars started. And the average price of a pizza went from $14.90 down to $6.90 over a period of 7 months. And it was driven by the US, by Pizza Hut, who, by the way, drove their store numbers from 480 down to 180 over the next 10 years. So they were killing their own people. But all the while you're running a business model that you know exactly how it works, and then someone comes in and changes all the rules, you can either do nothing or you can adjust to it. I'm sitting there, and this has happened so hard and so fast that our franchisees are jumping up and down saying, what do we do? Do we match price? Do we stay in the competition? Are we in that particular market? I mean, it was becoming an absolute nightmare. In the middle of all this, I get a phone call, the bank calls me in. I was in financial difficulty because I'd found out that an internal employee had ripped us off for just over $350,000, and I was out of business. I had literally 30 days to get all my debt to equity right. In the meantime, I went and sold my house, sold the warehouse, and started refinancing everything so we could stay on top of it. So as I was going to bed every night, sucking my thumb in the fetal position, trying to work out what I was going to do to make the payroll next week, I got a phone call as I walked into work one Friday morning, and the guy said, "Are you Tom Potter?" And I said, "Yeah." And he said, "I'm the chief editor of the Australian Financial Review." And you can imagine what I thought the next question was going to be is, "Are you going to be filing for bankruptcy soon?" And he said, "I just want to be the first to congratulate you. You've been nominated as Australian Young Business Person of the Year. Can you come to Sydney on Friday for the awards?" And I thought, I probably won't go broke for 2 weeks. I'll have a crack at this. And I went down to Sydney and I won it. And it was a scholarship to go to Harvard Business School for the next 3 years part-time. But for me, it was an eye-opener to an opportunity, and it was a motivator not to go broke and to find a way through this. And the first thing I did was I called in a friend of mine who eventually became a director on the board, and he was a marketing guy. And I told him that we were getting killed in the price wars. And he said, "We need to go out there and have a look and see what to do." We got in the car, we went out to one of our stores in Brisbane, and it was flat out busy. There was people everywhere. And I thought, oh, this doesn't look too bad at all. And Bill said, "Holy shit, you got a big problem here." And I said, "What do you mean?" And he said, "You've invited all the flies to the barbecue." I said, "Well, what do you mean?" He goes, "You've got a shop full of unprofitable customers." And I said, "But no customers are unprofitable." And he said, "Oh yeah." He said, "I want you to have a look around here." He said, "First of all, you got fourth generation unemployed people with fistful of coupons for $4.90 from Domino's. They want you to match that crap with your quality product." He said, "Over here," he said, "I can't even explain what these people are, but they're ferals." And he said, "And right in the middle of all these crowds of people you don't want, there's your target market, the people that are loyal to you and love you. But they're terrified because they're surrounded by customers that aren't normally here." And as I'm having a discussion about what's an unprofitable customer, a guy walks in the shop. He's got his hat on sideways, he's covered in tattoos, his shirt's all buckled up wrong, and as he's walking towards me, he makes eye contact, so I think I better go and serve him. And he's also got one thong on. Now I get transfixed on this thong. It's like cleavage. You shouldn't be there, but you are. I look down, I look up, I'm away. And the first thing I do is I want to have a conversation with this guy. And I said, "Mate, did you lose a thong?" And he said, "No, I found one." And Billy says to me right then, "We need to go back and define our strategy about where we're going, why we're going there, and how we're going to do it." We went back and decided we're going to get out of the price wars. We're going to differentiate ourselves on service and quality, and we're going to stand up for what we feel was right. And we got all the franchisees together in a room just like this and said, "We've got good news. We know which way is forward. Here's what we need to do. But it's critical over the next 6 months we lose customers." Can you imagine how motivating this is? It's very important we lose customers. But we stuck to our price position. We stuck to our service promise and it turned the business around and off we went. And over the next 5 years, Silvigo's disappeared. Pizza Haven disappeared. Pizza Hut halved. And then Domino's came into the scene and absolutely slammed into a price war that we never got into. So always remember there are things such as unprofitable customers, and they're not necessarily going to be a customer that you want long term. As the business continued to evolve and there was a lot of challenges, the single most important thing that happened in the last 5, maybe 7 years was my chairman. And he pulled me aside one day and said, I've got something hanging up in your office and I want you to have a look at it. And I got in there and there was a poster and it had a whole bunch of horses standing around in a paddock looking confused and a little zebra standing in front of them with a big smile on his face. He said, you know what that is? And I said, no, what is it? And he said, that's a zebra amongst horses. And I said, yeah, I can see that. And he goes, can you? And I said, what do you mean? And he said, everything in this world is almost commoditized. It's almost impossible to differentiate yourself against somebody else. But what your challenge now is to stand out like a zebra amongst horses. What's the one thing you can do to be different to everybody else? He said, Pizza Hut, Domino's, whatever they are, he said, I reckon we're all selling the same product. Now, at that stage, I wanted to bash his head in. I'm standing there saying, no, we're pink and we're beautiful and people love us. And he goes, yeah, what's going to make you famous in 5 years? What are you going to do to zig while everybody else is zagging? And he really challenged me on this point. And it took me 3 years to come up with one thing, and that was the 2-minute pizza. We went out to the market and we said, pizza in 2 minutes or it's free. Because you can't be half pregnant if you're going to make an offer to a consumer. And within 2 years, 80% of our pizzas were being sold through the 2-minute menu. People could walk in, get their pizzas and walk straight back out again. It was entirely different. There was no discussion on price. That's our service promise. And we introduced drive-throughs. 80% of all fast food in Australia goes to drive-throughs. We are so lazy, I thought. But then I found that the main reason that drive-through is so popular is safety. People do not want to get out of their car with young kids and have them run out in front of another car and get run over. So it was a safety issue. I will tell you another thing that I discovered with drive-throughs, because I went up and worked in our first drive-through in Emerald in Western Queensland. When some women have to run out at the last minute to pick up something and they realise they're going in the car to drive-through, they really don't care too much about how they're dressed. They just get in the car and off they go. And sometimes when you're standing at the drive-through window and you're looking out that window, you just can't unsee it. But for me, it was like, this is our future. It's all about drive-through and it's all about having the ability to have one thing that makes you different. You challenged everybody in the room before about what are the 2 or 3 things that they wanted to do over the next couple of days. And one of the fellas said in the session, he wanted to just make sure he was clear on his plan. You've got to have a plan. And I don't care if it's only one page that says, these are the 5 things I want to achieve this year. One of the greatest things that ever got said to me was, Tom, the only thing that's holding you back is your ability to have a vision as to where you want to go and how big you want to make it. And I thought, wow. And it was true. Because once I started thinking big and seeing big and getting that vision there, it was, what are we going to put in place to make it work? But if you don't have a plan, I remember someone talking to me, I do a bit of consulting on bits and pieces, and someone recently said to me, I just want to have a nice little business. And I said, well, trust me, if that's what you want, that's all you're going to have. Because you've got 8 or 10 hours in a day. I'd rather have a nice big business. And here's another challenge for you. If you can have a business that makes you money while you're asleep, it's a great business. If you can have a business that makes money while you're asleep, it's a great business. If the business is all about you, it's not quite a business yet. So keep building and evolving these businesses so they can continue to have that income without necessarily you having to be there. After 21 years, the business was 280 million in sales, 6,500 employees. We were in 4 different countries, and I decided that it was time to get out and sell the business. One of the reasons was my chairman said, the next option is to take it to a public company, and I don't think you're going to be a very good CEO of a public company. He said, to be a CEO of a public company, there's a whole bunch of things that you need to be able to manage, including institutions and shareholders. And he said, you'll be the first one to ever get fired from a public company for telling someone to go and get in the meeting. And I think he was right. You have to know your limitations, and you have to know what you're good at and what you're not good at. So I sold the business back in 2007, and I was unfortunate enough to see the business go from 280 million in sales to closing the doors inside 10 years. And people quite often come up and say, what happened and why? And I say, they just broke their promise. They had a really nice basic product that said, here's what I do and here's how I do it. And the way I used to describe Eagle Boys to people is, we were really a Holden Commodore. We were unsexy, we were functional, and we did the job. Instead, they went out, put the prices up, cheapened the product, and broke the promise. And people will walk away from you every time. You know, there's 10 things most people want, whether they're an employee or a customer or even your wife or husband. But if you find out what the 2 are that matter the most, that will give you the transaction and that will give you the desired outcome. Serena will know. Market research will tell you that a customer will want 10 things, but only 2 will drive the transaction. If you are selling and you're sitting down with a potential customer, ask them what they want and then ask them what matters the most. Ask them what they want and ask them what matters the most. Then go away and be able to give it to them. Has anybody ever heard that saying, do unto others as you would have them do unto you? Does anyone actually believe in that? Yes, that's wrong. It's really wrong. I tried this on my wife. Do unto others as you've had them do unto you. It's Friday night, footy's on. Order up a couple of nice big cheesy pizzas with anchovies. I put a couple of VBs in the esky ready to go, and I sat her down, and I can tell you, she doesn't want to be treated like I want to be treated. It's do unto others as they would like to be done unto. Find out what the customer wants. What do you want? We've got some great contracts with all the airports. I don't know if anybody remembers seeing the Eagle Boys in the airports. I walked in and said, what do you guys want? And they said, what? And I said, what do you want? And they said, no one's ever asked us that. And I said, just tell me what you want and I'll see if I can give it to you. Awesome. That'd be great, because McDonald's came in here and all they did was tell us how it was going to be. And we hate McDonald's and they're not coming in just because of that. So ask them what they want. And then say, now, what are the 1 or 2 things that matter the most? We've only got a couple of minutes left, and I do want to have a couple of questions with you guys on the floor, and we are running a bit late, but I do appreciate how patient you've been today and what great listeners and crowd. But I'll close off with one particular story. I don't know much about your business, and now I'm in the donut business and bakery business, and I do a little bit of the speaking as well. And I like to think that sometimes I've just left you 2 or 3 gems that you can take away from either the past mistakes or successes that I may have had. And I always say to my wife, I'm usually right 50% of the time, which she usually agrees with me. And for me, it's always about continuing to keep pushing your way through and finding a way that'll work and finding a way that other people have already given up on.